Interesting. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. Goalkeepers, goalkeepers, goalkeepers. It is always something about goalkeepers at the moment, isn't it? And today is no exception. So, breaking reports in the last hour that apparently Enzo Maresca has asked Chelsea to sign Emi Martinez. Oh, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Emi Martinez, the World Cup winner, who had a great season with Aston Villa and has had a very few good seasons with Aston Villa quite recently in their rise from relegated side to mid-table team to Champions League spot challengers. It's been really interesting, isn't it? He's obviously played in the Champions League recently as well. They had that great game against PSG. He is 32 years old. I kind of mentioned in my video yesterday, it looks like we're really keen to find this stopgap goalkeeper at the moment, aren't we? I'm for it. I'm much more for this than I was for Mike Maignan. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I don't know. I just really like Martinez because he's got that bit about him, and he's a proprietor of the dark arts, you might say, and he loves winding people up. He's big. I've got a big ego, he's a bit arrogant, and you definitely need that for a goalkeeper. I watched an interview with Gianluigi Buffon years ago, and I absolutely loved his take. He was like, as a goalkeeper, you have to be outrageously egotistical because you actually have to believe that a goal is never going to go past you. Obviously it is, but if the doubt creeps into your mind for a second, then your entire game falls apart. And I think we've seen that, haven't we? If you look at Robert Sanchez, he doesn't think he's the best goalkeeper in the world. He doesn't think that he's going to keep every single goal out, does he? Because he lets them in, and he lets them in quite a silly fashion more often than not. So yeah, man, Emi Martinez, bring it on. I'm totally up for that. So supposedly, to further the story, this was on the Chelsea Chronicle, by the way. Apparently, Maresca has lost faith in Robert Sanchez. And it's not really surprising, is it? You got to think it's one thing building your team, like getting youngsters in and you know, having people that maybe haven't got loads of experience in general outfield, but when it comes to the guy in the sticks, he is ultimately the one that is going to knit everything together. The guys in front of him will feed off of that confidence and that self-assuredness and play better because they're confident. They haven't got to keep one eye looking behind them all the time to make sure their goalkeeper isn't going to let one in. They can play their football first foot forward, knowing, okay, if something does get through us, then we've got a guy in the sticks there who is probably going to sort it out. He's definitely a divisive character, obviously largely because of the dark art stuff, and I think there's a large conversation about whether he's overrated or not. Now, I'm not going to get into whether I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world. I think Alisson probably still takes that at the moment, doesn't he? Edison, although maybe not so much in the last years, has been really up in that conversation for a long time. Thibaut Courtois, obviously, still going, absolutely brilliant for Real Madrid. But Martinez is up there with the better goalkeepers in general, right? And to go from Sanchez to Martinez, even if it is just a stopgap, because as I said, Martinez is 32, that's such an upgrade, man. That's such an upgrade in performance levels, in experience. He's been in the Prem for a really long time now. He's, you know, obviously started out at Arsenal, didn't he? And he actually had a really good season playing for Arsenal once, and they ended up selling him to Aston Villa, and then he's just gone from strength to strength there. Won a World Cup. He's going to be hooking up with his international Argentinian teammate Enzo Fernandez, so, you know, a bit of brotherly love in there. We love that, don't we? And yeah, man, Emi Martinez, bring it on. I think this is a wicked idea. So in further goalkeeping news, there is some tidbits going around about Mike Penders at the moment as well. Now, I've seen literally two conflicting reports, but they both start with the same thing and end up somewhere different. Both reports suggest that we are not going to send Mike Penders back to Genk in Belgium, which is where he originally came from. So the two reports that are offering different opinions, one says potentially we're going to loan him to Strasbourg, which would make sense, right? Because obviously Jordi Petrovic was there last season, had a great season, and although a lot of us were hoping he'd come back into the Chelsea team, it looks like we're going to sell him. Obviously, he was excluded from the Club World Cup. He asked to be excluded from the Club World Cup because he wanted game time. We said, we're not definitely going to give you game time. You've got to earn it, blah, 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 blah. Check out my video from yesterday about the 10 players that Chelsea are putting up for sale if you would like a more in-depth analysis about the Petrovic saga. But yeah, if Petrovic does get sold, obviously not going to get loaned back to Strasbourg. We'll just make some money off him. Strasbourg will then need themselves a keeper because Petrovic was their main keeper all of last season. Mike Penders definitely needs to play and get minutes. I'm not convinced he'd get enough minutes to benefit keeping him here at the moment, because we're not just talking about, we think he's like the next coming of Courtois. So we need to get him out there and get in some minutes. Obviously, with us buying a stopgap keeper like Emi Martinez. Also, yesterday there was mentions of Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Before that, obviously, it was Mike Maignan. So there's a very clear set of attributes that we're looking for in a goalkeeper. And one of them is not someone young, because we're looking for someone to come in and do the job right now and that isn't going to be looking to take that spot for a really long time. So yes, one report says Mike Penders back to Strasbourg. I personally am very for that. The other one did say that maybe we keep him around for development. Now, I think sending him to Strasbourg is probably a better idea. Obviously, there's the connection already. There's the connection, with the Blue-Co connection. We like the manager over there, Liam Rossinia. He's obviously doing a really good job there. There will be other players loaned out, obviously, likely including the likes of Matisse Mugu. And maybe a couple of others. So there's still going to be a small little core of Chelsea players out there. And I think for me personally, getting Penders out there is the best way to go. So if we buy someone like Martinez or even ter Stegen, I would rather go for Martinez than ter Stegen, in my humble opinion. But yeah, no, I think this makes sense. I think you keep Jorgensen around for the odd Carabao Cup game and this and that and the other. Probably sell Sanchez. I don't think Sanchez will do well as a second keeper, because he spent 2.5 seasons-ish as a number one keeper now. So I think that to demote him from that, he wouldn't even play as well as he's playing now. We've got like an Emi Martinez or a ter Stegen. He's not looking to fight back into that spot, I wouldn't have thought. So the mess is starting to unravel and clean itself up, finally. The goalkeeping situation has been a nightmare for such a while. Well, since Courtois, really. Do you know what I mean? Edouard Mendy was the best thing we had in terms of like a stopgap. Of a season that we did really well and a goalkeeper that we really liked, but he did end up falling off when managers changed over. So hopefully this is the beginning of the end of the goalkeeping saga. What we can hope for timeline-wise is we get through the Club World Cup with Sanchez. That's going to happen. Hopefully Sanchez gets put on the market and goes to a West Ham or a Brighton or something. No, not Brighton, obviously that's where we got him from, isn't it? But, if he ends up at like a Graham Potter's West Ham, somewhere where there's a bit less pressure on him, and maybe he can kind of flourish in that environment where the eyes aren't quite lasered on him so much, because obviously all of the Chelsea fans are basically sick of him at the moment, and supposedly so is the manager. So yeah, we get an Emi Martinez in. That's the one that I want. Emi Martinez is 32. Emi Martinez is our goalkeeper for 1 season, maybe 2 seasons. I wouldn't have thought 3. That's probably pushing it a little bit, because by that time, Mike Penders will be into his early 20s and hopefully will have significant game time under his belt. Penders comes back in. Martinez either drops back to second keeper or gets moved on for doing what we hope is an admirable job. And Mike Penders becomes the number one. His 6'5" self, I think he's 6'5", really, really big guy, but his 6 foot something self becomes our number one goalkeeper for the next decade, and we get the Courtois that we always wanted, but he doesn't snake us for Real Madrid this time. So wicked, positive, right? Yes, goalkeeping situation, I can almost finally stop talking about it. We hope, obviously, let's temper some of that expectation, pull it back a little bit, because we could easily be let down. Maybe none of these pan out, and worst case scenario, we end up with Robert Sanchez for a whole another season. Please no, please no, please no, I don't. Make it stop, make that nightmare stop. So just a few little rag pieces to flesh out the video. A couple of weird ones, actually. So, although absolutely nothing confirmed, but a link is a link, isn't it? Supposedly Chelsea interested in Harvey Elliot of Liverpool. That's a weird one. Yes, very young player, English. I guess the homegrown thing was always something you've got to keep an eye on, don't get me wrong. I guess he could play like centre attackers. Evidently what we do need is a backup for Cole Palmer, right? Best case scenario, Cole Palmer arrives again, comes back, finds himself, and becomes the absolute monster that we know he can be. But without the likes of Christopher Nkunku, João Felix to provide adequate support and backup in that role and push and maybe challenge Cole Palmer a little bit, I guess we are missing another option for a centre attacking midfield, and we can't just keep playing Cole Palmer every single game, because A, if he doesn't get better, then that's not going to help the team. And B, if we keep playing him, and even if he's not playing well, we're just going to knacker him out. Do you know what I mean? Obviously fatigue is a real thing when very young footballers. I've mentioned Bukayo Saka a couple of times. We need to avoid that kind of situation. So we need to get someone who can support Cole Palmer in that role, and someone who can maybe push him and challenge him a little bit. I'm not convinced that Harvey Elliott's going to come in and be the guy. Do you know what I mean? But do I think he'd be a better option than Christopher Nkunku and João Felix for that centre attacking role? Yeah, I guess, I think he's still young. He's got potential. He's got a lot of experience under his belt now. He's had 3-4 seasons of not first team. He's not always in the first team, but he's been in and around that Liverpool team for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So yeah, okay, I can see if that's the way that we're going. I don't see him challenging Enzo Fernandez or Andre Santos for that deeper role, even though he played kind of an 8 role at Liverpool a lot of the time. I don't see him as a right winger. I think he's left-footed, isn't he? So and that's another, obviously, comparison to Cole Palmer, which is interesting to maintain the balance. But I don't see him competing with the likes of Neto, Esteval, Willian or Madueke, and I don't see him as a left winger. So the only thing that makes sense for me in the formation that we play is if we are looking at someone like Harvey Elliott, then it is ostensibly to support Cole Palmer in that centre attacking role. This isn't really news at this point. If you watched my video yesterday, you will know how much I hate the word imminent when it is used in football terms, because it is almost never true. But there is, again, more noise saying Jamie Gittins is going to happen. He wants to come to Chelsea. It's a matter of time. I think this one feels like football's worst kept secret at the moment, that Jamie Gittins is coming to Chelsea. We already know he'd agreed the deal. Supposedly £55 million is the purported amount that we're looking at paying for him. Oh, that's a lot, isn't it? It is a lot, but yeah, £55 million is a lot of money, but this seems to just be the going rate for first teamers in the Chelsea team. We obviously really lucked out on prices of people like Jackson and Madueke that we got in the 30 mil kind of area. Dortmund are not the kind of team that are going to sell an asset for anything below what they want for him. It just doesn't happen, does it? There are so many storied tales of Dortmund taking players for really young age, having them for a season or 2, and then selling them for big money. At the end of the day, let's just be happy they're not quoting 80 to 90 mil. We all remember the Ousmane Dembele saga, where they had him for a year and sold him for like 120 mil they made for him. It was ridiculous. They obviously had Jude Bellingham. They sold him for 100 mil as well. Erling Haaland actually was only like 60 mil, but supposedly maybe there was some money that's gone under the table that wasn't actually on the books for that deal. So maybe it did end up being more than that if the rumours are true. Allegedly. So yeah, I'm not surprised Dortmund are holding out for the money that they want, because that is just what they do. They are one of the best selling clubs in the entire world. If Dortmund aren't amazing at winning titles and challenging for leagues constantly, what they are really, really, really good at is making money. Just to stay on Dortmund for a second, I hate this. I don't like the fact that yesterday it was just an arbitrary rumour, and today I've seen a figure. I really, really don't think this will happen, but Borussia Dortmund are supposedly again interested in Josh Acheampong, and a purported amount of 41 million euros is being thrown around. Now, the issue with this, like I say, I don't think, it doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think it will happen, but the issue is for an academy player who doesn't have a huge amount of first team experience and isn't an integral part of the machine. He's not a proper cog in it yet. He's just starting to get his way in. That's a lot of money. That's a huge amount of money, pure book profit. And I am only worried that our American owners see that with dollar signs in their eyes, and that's all they can see. So recently, Maresca's being a little bit more outspoken, right? Supposedly, if the rumours are to be believed, he's said his piece on Jackson. He's not part of my initial integral plans anymore. I'll keep him around, but if a buyer comes in for him, then he can go. He's supposedly gone in and said, I want Emi Martinez, get me this guy. And he's come out previously saying Josh Acheampong is a baller and we love him. So let's hope that Maresca's got enough pull after what was ultimately a really good first season. Do you know what I mean? Champions League spot in the Prem and a trophy, our first trophy in a little while. Wicked. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he's got some money in the bank in that respect. So hopefully if Dortmund do come in with a reasonably big bid for Josh Acheampong, then Maresca can kind of put his foot down and be like, no, you got to keep this guy around. You can't have him. He's ours. He's ours. And so, yeah, that's kind of it for today, guys. One tiny little rumour that's not really a Chelsea related at all. It's a Chelsea of a time gone. Timo Werner is supposedly looking to make the switch from Red Bull Leipzig to the New York Red Bulls. And he's not even that old, man. Do you know what I mean? I think he's like 27-ish, maybe, something like that. And that is just mad, seeing as how we bought him what feels like yesterday. And he came off that unbelievable season at Red Bull Leipzig. What a really strange story he had. Do you know what I mean? Is like, he was up here, man. He was up here. Liverpool, I remember at the time we were in for him, all Liverpool fans were like, get Timo Werner. And we were like, we'll have a bit of that. We took him and it just didn't work. And initially it was like, oh, maybe it's just Chelsea because Chelsea ruin attacking players, blah, 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 blah. But then he went to Tottenham and it was also the same. And even going back to Red Bull Leipzig, where we bought him from in the first place, he still didn't really knock it out of the park. So he seems to have fallen off. It's a little bit of a João Felix-y kind of thing, isn't it? It's like all this potential and, you know, all this kind of investment was put into him by a few different clubs and he's tried a few different things and none of it's worked. Bit of a sad story for Timo Werner. The guy that once was the saviour is now firmly in the castaway pile. But I hope he goes over to the MLS and has a good time. I think the MLS is going to keep on getting bigger. You are starting to see a shift because what was happening in the MLS at the beginning was they were buying retirement age players. And I say retirement age players that will struggle to keep up in European leagues, right? You've got, Inter Miami obviously being the best example, have literally bought half of Barcelona's treble winning team under Luis Enrique. Do you know what I mean? They've got Jordi Alba, they've got Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, and Sergio Busquets. And that was kind of the story, but you are slowly starting to see the age of the stars that are moving over there start to drop. So they're getting more players that are in or closer to their prime. That is going to be more exciting for their league and it's going to raise the competitive nature. I think it's a good thing. Even though he hasn't been able to really massively cut it in European football, if he can go over there and rediscover a bit of his form, kind of like Carlos Vela did when he went over there, then yeah, that's going to be really good for Timo Werner. And despite the fact that he was awful for us and committed the cardinal sin of moving to Tottenham, we all really wanted him to do well when he came to Chelsea. And for that reason, I hope that he goes there and does well. All right, guys, that is it. I'm going to wrap it up for today. But if you did enjoy the content, please do me the distinct honour of liking, sharing, subscribing, hit all of the algorithmical buttons, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Nice one, guys. I am Matt. This has been the Stamford Sink. I'll be keeping my ear to the ground for more Chelsea news to bring it back to you as soon as possible. Have a wicked day. Peace.